What's up everybody, it's Samuel Jake. I'm a photographer and filmmaker, and today I'm out here on the North Shore. We got Sunset Beach right behind us breaking. It's winter and so the waves are going crazy, and so we had the Pipe Masters last week that I was able to shoot. So I've been here having a great time in Hawaii, and I'm here today to review this camera. It's the Canon R7. I've had it for about a year now, and there's a lot of really good things about this camera that has made it so that I've picked it up more than my R5C, which is what I'm filming on. I have the C70 and the R5C and the R7. So I'm going to talk about the pros first. There's a lot of pros in my eyes to this camera. I really enjoy using it, and so the first thing I'm going to talk about is the ergonomics. I really like the button layout. You have off, on, and then video. The R5, which I had before the R7 and the R5C, had two different buttons that you'd have to press to switch it to video mode, which is really inefficient in my eyes, so I really like this system. And then the current R5C has the photo mode to the left and then the video mode to the right, and so sometimes when you hit it, it'll go, to turn it off, it'll go to the video mode, and then it takes a second to shut down, and so that's not really ideal for me. And so this, simple switch actually does a lot for me. I really enjoy using the 18-35, so the crop sensor on this camera is not a big deal. And then I also have the 50-100 f1.8 Sigma lens, and then I use the 10-18 Canon EFS crop sensor lens, and I have 10-100 with really low f-stop and aperture, and that's really good. I find myself picking up this R7 more than my R5C to go into the action shots that I get, like winter sports or surf. I actually have an underwater housing for this because it was a lot cheaper than the R5C underwater housing. And so I've gotten a lot of really good photos and videos, and I don't ever feel like I'm needing much more. I do definitely see the difference between the R5C and the quality that it has versus the R7, but 90% of the time, this camera gets it done for me, and I already use this lens so much that it doesn't really matter for me to have a full frame. Battery life is really good for video. Coming from the R5C, you have to have an external battery or else it's not really worth using, in my opinion, and so you have to rig it out, and it's good for what it is. Like if you want some weight and you're doing more cinema work, obviously that's a really good option, and it's a great hybrid camera, but this camera is just so lightweight that just picking it up and going with it is really nice, and having the battery life for 2-ish hours for 4K, 24, 60 frames per second is pretty good. And so for vlogging, for documenting different things, or just getting social media stuff, this is a great camera. This camera is really affordable. I got it at Best Buy, and I get it on financing, so you can have like 24 months financing with 0% down, and it's like $1,500. I think it's like right now on sale for like $1,300 plus tax. And so that's a really good option. So just if you're looking to switch from DSLR or just get into an entry-level pricing, this camera packs a really good punch. And so like if you're doing a lot of social media, hybrid shooting, photo and video, this camera is going to do a lot of things. It's going to check off a lot of boxes for you. Most boxes for me. I do this professionally. I've been freelancing for 10 years, and like I would suggest this camera to a lot of people. Social media and basic things like that, this camera can do everything that you need. So a crop sensor gives you a little bit more space if you do use a full frame lens, and so like if you like action or wildlife and you need a little bit more reach, like when I take pictures of surfers out here, it's nice to have the little bit extra reach with the crop sensor. Also, if you're doing wildlife, you want a little bit more reach getting a bird or a moose or anything like out in Yellowstone or whatever, that little reach is actually a pretty good thing. I see a lot of wildlife photographers getting crop sensor bodies instead of a full frame, just so they can have that extra reach. And so crop sensor really isn't, in my opinion, that big of a deal anymore. 5 years ago it was a big deal. Definitely saw a disparity between a full frame and a crop sensor body, but now I just don't really think it matters, my personal opinion. You get 32 megapixels, and so you have a lot of real estate when it comes to blowing it up, and so the R5 gets like 45, which is great, but I think that 32 megapixels is way more than enough, and cameras have just really skyrocketed for what you get for the bang for your buck. Basically, like the pros that I would say, just really easy to use, simple, affordable, gives you really everything across the board in terms of photo and video specs, so that you can get out there and shoot for a good price. The cons that I would say with it is if you're using a wider lens, like a 10-18 or this 18-35, and you use the digital image stabilization, you shake it a little bit or you're not really stable with it, it kind of warps the edges, which is kind of a bummer. I don't really shake my footage that much. If I really need a stable shot, I'm going to use a stabilizer or just hold it and just, I work on myself versus the camera. It's $1,500. It's not that big a deal in my opinion. If you can't get the shot that you're getting for $1,500, upgrade your camera, get a stabilizer. That's not the issue, in my opinion. Obviously, having a full-size HDMI for video is ideal. I don't expect them to put that into this camera. I do expect them to put it into the R5C, so when the R5C2 comes out or the R5 II comes out, please, full HDMI, everyone's gonna love that. It's necessary. All the other camera brands are doing it. Canon, do it. The custom buttons setup, I have an underwater housing for this camera, and so I broke this in the underwater housing. Stupid story, but it broke it, and so this was the dial that controls all of the shutter speed and the aperture, and you can't reprogram it to anything else. And so when I broke that, I was unable to use it in the water, and so just being able to program it to a different button would be very helpful for more than just underwater. And so Canon, that'd probably be a good thing to figure out. ISO with this camera is not the best, but we have AI, and Lightroom has added a new denoise feature that can really eliminate most ISO issues. So if you put it into that, denoise it, come on, like, technology is dialed these days, and so I really appreciate all that kind of stuff. So, and then honestly, the AF has its moments where it's just not focusing correctly. Like, I have it on a subject and it should be just perfectly tracking it, but it just kind of searches a little bit more. It just kind of like hovers back and forth, and I don't really like that. It's $1,500, I understand it. I use the R5C for manual focusing instead of autofocusing most of the time, so having a nice option for a gimbal work that I can just press and track somebody and you know, focus on the gimbal movement versus, you know, manually focusing everything as a one-man hybrid shooter. The R7 is a nice tool in my arsenal. So overall, I'd say that this camera is perfect for somebody transitioning from a DSLR to a mirrorless. I think it's a great price point. I think you get so much for $1,500, just, you know, getting the body. And then if you combine that with an EF glass, this 18-35, and an adapter where you can change anything to a variable ND or a polarizer, have it be clear, you have a lot of options when it comes to low light and just getting good shots. So I think that this camera is perfect for people that use social media, they're building their portfolio. You know, they're not really submitting like high resolution stuff to clients where they're needing to have like higher megapixels or the best depth in terms of like codec or dynamic range for video. This is going to get everything that you need done pretty much for a great price, like $1,500. I keep saying it. It has a lot of features that are really good. So I suggest this to honestly anybody, and I usually end up picking up this camera to shoot most of my stuff just because it's so lightweight and easy to use. The R5C has to be rigged up a little bit more, and I love the R5C. It has a lot of great things about it, but you know, when I'm going into the mountains to ski and to catch all that kind of stuff, it just has a little bit too much on it for me. So this thing is really nice to just put it in my pocket while I'm skiing and then take it out, and it's just like boom, 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 it's back into the pocket, then I don't have to think about it. And then I also have insurance on it. It's not that expensive, and so like it's just, I don't have to worry about it at all. If it breaks, I can just get a new one. I do a lot of different types of photography: studio, action, surf, you know, winter sports, automotive, and it checks off all the boxes. I haven't really had an issue with using this in anything, and so if I do, I'll let you know, but it's been really great. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if you like this type of content, maybe consider hitting the subscribe button. I'm going to be making a lot of content about what I think about cameras and how I use them, and little tips and tricks about everything that I do. So I hope you have a great day, and mahalo, and we'll catch you next time.